Toby.
Hello.
This is a really special episode. I'm so honored to have you here. We go way back and reconnected just this past October at our 30-year high school reunion.
Yes.
And seeing you, like, it brought so much joy to my face, Toby. Like, truly, you were one of those people that I was like, I'm so happy he's here. Like I didn't know if I was going and I decided to go. And having a conversation with you and learning about your story more. And like, I hadn't seen you for 30 years,
Yeah.
right?
No, I think, yeah, literally we graduated in 1995 and I
Yeah.
think literally saw each other 30 years later. So, but I
Yeah.
agree. You were one of the people I was most excited to see. So,
Oh, well, just like, thank you so much for being open and willing. I think, am I your first podcast?
yes, you're my first.
Oh, well, no pressure. Like, yeah, I'm really excited to feature you and share your story of how you and your husband and you grew to have your two kids and all that you navigated through, because I think my community, I'm very curious and I just want to hear your personal experience going through that, finding an egg donor, a surrogate, navigating the whole process. So yeah, I would love to just share a bit about you and have you share. I know you're based in
Sure.
San Jose
Yeah.
and from Colorado. That's how we got connected with our families and playing volleyball with your sister and everything. But
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can maybe just kind of give you
Yeah.
a little bit of my timeline. So yeah, I mean, we high school Colorado and then
Yeah.
undergrad at Dartmouth and then I did med school at Dartmouth as well. And then my sister I have two sisters, but the one that you played with the most
Yeah.
was living in the Bay Area. And
Mhm.
so when it was time for residency, I looked at programs out here in the Bay Area and where she was. And then I did my residency in Oakland at Children's Hospital Oakland. So I'm a
Yeah.
general pediatrician now. Um,
Doctor, I should call you Dr. Toby because I'm
well,
not
that's so
sure.
it's really okay. And yes, I'm a general
Mhm.
pediatrician, which is interesting because I'm like in thinking about today, I was like, I'm really here, more as just like a parent and a person who's gone through IVF and
Mhm.
surrogacy.
Mhm.
And I don't really have expertise in like the medical side of it. And so I kind of had to keep reminding myself, like, I'm not the expert on IVF here today. And I'm not here with like my doctor hat on.
Right.
And so, but there's some interesting maybe pieces about
Yeah.
like also being a doctor and a pediatrician. But yeah, so I'm a general pediatrician. I work in the Stanford network, and do just, well care visits, sore throats, ear infections, and
Mhm.
reassuring nervous parents most of the time that
Oh,
it's all going to be
patients love
okay.
you.
And yeah, I met my husband. I was in residency, it was '08, and we met through tennis. So he was a college tennis player, and I almost played college tennis, and
Uh-huh.
that was '08. And then we have been together since 17 years and two kids later. So here we
Wow.
are. Yeah.
And when you met him, like, how soon did you have those conversations about, like, do you want to be a parent? Like, was that pretty immediate?
Yeah, I think so I was 30, he was
Mhm.
29. And so
Mhm.
we'd sort of had our 20s to live life or whatever. And then I think we were both like very clear from the beginning that that was what we both wanted. So that helped to kind of be unified in that goal. Um, but it was also like, how does this happen? What are the options for this to happen? There was just, yeah, there were a lot of questions. And so, but
Mhm.
at least we were both unified in that being the common goal.
Where did you start with that? Did you have other friends who were like, what
I
was the first
know.
start of that
Well,
process?
I think even the first question is like, adoption versus like surrogacy and egg donor.
Mhm.
And my other sister, Liza, who you didn't overlap with, but
I remember
she
her. Yeah.
has an adopted son
Okay.
and who it was I think they hadn't quite yet adopted, but he's 13 now. So So she'd gone through the adoption process. And so that was kind of like the first branch point is like,
Mm-hmm.
should we be thinking about that? And that's kind of an interesting, I think, question is like there are a lot of kids out there who really could use a loving family
Mm-hmm.
and I think that we both just kind of had this dream of like having, kids that were biologically related to us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was kind of the first branch point was like adoption versus kind of IVF and surrogacy. Um, and then we did have some friends who had gone through the process. And so that helped a little bit, but I will say like in the like gay community, and this was in like, San Francisco Bay Area. Um, there were families for sure, but it was pretty uncommon in our circle. And so it um it was going to be like there were some examples, but we were definitely going to be, some of the first in our group of friends to really go through it. So
Wow. Like you said,
yeah.
you shared with me, two guys in suburbia. Like you didn't
Yeah,
experience medical fertility challenges, these non-medical fertility challenges, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of just the different piece of it is like, when we decided kind of looking into IVF and surrogacy, it
Mhm.
wasn't like we'd had a long journey that a lot of your guests and listeners
Right.
will have. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a different piece is like,
Mhm.
it wasn't like, oh, we struggled and had this kind of emotional journey to get to the point where it was like, we need to do IVF. It was like,
Mhm.
once we decided not adoption, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we kind of we come to it, I think, from a different, with like a different history in that way.
Mhm.
And so I'm aware of that like we don't bring to it the same emotional, I
Right.
think, like heaviness that a lot of women probably have, um, which I think is
Mhm.
because I think sometimes what also happens is, and even I've sort of listened to some of your other guests, is that the interaction with like the medical community can feel impersonal and a little bit cold and sterile.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was aware kind of as we were going through it, I'm like, thankfully, we're just like two men who kind of just like need the like, we need an egg and we need embryos made. It was more clinical, like
Right.
whereas I could imagine being someone who'd come to this after years of struggle, feeling like there's not this emotional connection, like the doctors and the nurses aren't expressing like, you know, as much compassion or
Yeah.
connection. So I think I've heard from a few other of your guests that like, and I think about this as a doctor too,
Yeah.
like just being aware that, a lot of things when I see someone on a day-to-day basis, it's like it's clinical for me and okay, this is just like your kid's wheezing and they need this, asthma medicine, but like trying to remember that like
Yeah.
to be really aware of like the emotional effect that that might have on the family or whatever. So I think that's just like one big difference is that we were just like less sensitive to like, okay, this is kind of sterile. This is a little bit impersonal. It's almost like more of a business transaction a little bit. And I think that would be probably one big difference for us compared to like other guests and a lot of people in your audience is that we thankfully didn't have to like worry about that as much.
Thank you for
So,
expressing your that empathy in this
yeah.
process because it is so emotionally draining, exhausting, overwhelming, all the things. But I'm sure you, and we can talk about it later on too, about, I'm sure you experienced some of the challenges like in the waiting and living in the unknown and seeing maybe what your egg donor your surrogate was going through, maybe through her eyes. But when you started this process, did you just choose a clinic? Did you have someone guide you to, okay, this is the first step? I don't know. Like a lot of people just kind of stumble
Yeah.
upon, okay, let's figure this out, right?
Yeah. So I think partly because we didn't feel like we needed that like really nurturing, maybe small clinic feel. I think that took away the need to like really look for, we just basically needed like a clinic that was had a good success rate of creating embryos.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's, in the Bay Area, there's sort of a few of the most popular clinics, and we just happened to, I'm off on Fridays, and we were kind of going to some other appointment. And while there, I just happened to be like, oh yeah, I think that like, that reproductive like fertility clinic is nearby. So we weren't even intending to go there. We just drove over there, walked in, and kind of started the process. So
Love it.
it was one of the kind of the bigger clinics in the area. And then I think for us, like the going through the egg donor, like choosing the egg donor process was like
Yeah.
really interesting. And I know you've had some other guests kind of talk about either embryo donation or kind of going through egg donation, but
Hmm.
um, it's like, you start looking through this kind of catalog
Right. Yeah.
of people, and I think, before you have kids, or you kind of think, well, if I could choose, I would choose, the Harvard valedictorian, or I would choose the someone who was an Olympic athlete, or you kind of imagine all the traits that you think you're gonna want. And so you're sort of like looking through this catalog of people. And then, then you kind of are also like, is that really how this works? Do I, it's, and then, so that felt a little bit like, okay, maybe we just need to rethink like what we're actually looking for. And, our doctor in the end was kind of like, and this is probably sensitive for a lot of your listeners, but it's like, younger eggs yield kind of more probably healthy embryos. And so just to increase your chances, probably
Hmm.
what you really want is just to find someone who's
Hmm.
young, which I
Hmm.
think is also just like hard for probably a lot of people that are in their 40s trying to go through this is like, oh my gosh, I don't have young eggs. And so
Right.
anyway, I'm just super aware of how
Yeah.
that might
Hmm.
come across. But in the end, that was like, okay, like we're trying to maximize um, our chances of having the
Chances.
most embryos. So we ended up, finding an egg donor that was like 22, and also there were traits that seemed just like pretty
Hmm.
healthy, and but we weren't as focused on like, is she like, you know, the the smartest, most athletic person alive or whatever. So
Because they list out those kind of highlights, accomplishments, or
yeah, I mean, so every agency is different, but our agency, they we have an anonymous egg donor. So there are agencies that have like you pay quite a bit more. And I mean, I think there's
hmm.
one in LA called like the Golden Egg or something, and they really try to attract these like, you know, highly sought after eggs
Okay.
for us. But it was just you can see, you know, height and weight and hair color and eye color, and and then we could end up seeing, a lot of information about her family and her parents and
Okay.
her siblings and how tall they were and their eye color and their hair color and, medical problems and college degree or not college degree or
Yeah. Okay.
so we have, quite a bit of information. Um, but in the end we became less worried about like trying to create,
Yeah.
the person
Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
which I think because then you're like, when you're choosing a partner or a spouse, like of course you think about these things, but you're also like, well, like
Hmm.
in the end, you don't have as much control as you think you do. So
Mm.
we
Thank you
just
for
went,
sharing
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah,
And it's anonymous, you said? It was
it
an
is.
anonymous.
So our egg donor, we have pictures of her as a like the agency has pictures of her as a infant and a toddler. They do have a few pictures of her, like one picture of her as an adult. Um, and just to like protect her privacy, they don't want a lot of couples like seeing this woman and, passing her on the street and be like, oh, you're donor number,
Yeah.
7825, so, but they do show you if once you
Yeah.
sort of narrow down to a few choices, they show you one picture of her as an adult. And
Okay.
then we left like they have this option where you can say if in the future
Yeah. They ask
she,
me.
wants to, learn about you, are you open to that? And we said, of course. And so if she goes back to the agency and decides um, to make it an open process, then
Mm.
she can find us.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. Um,
Thank you for sharing that. And
so
how many
that's
eggs were you able to get? Like, did you buy
so
them in like, I hate to say a batch, but is that
I know it is,
like,
it does,
it
yeah.
sounds,
And
right?
that's it does feel right. It feels transactional in a way. And so I guess I just am aware of that and I don't I hope people, don't have the sense that it is as like transactional as
No,
it
we
sounds,
get it.
but
We get it.
yeah, it is an IVF podcast. So, but we got 36 eggs.
Wow.
So we fertilized, half with my husband's and half with mine. But I was surprised that out of those, I ended up with four, kind of really healthy embryos, and he ended up
Mhm.
with two.
Okay.
So, so
Okay.
out of, 36 eggs,
Yeah.
it
I
was,
know the
it's
numbers go
still
down.
exactly.
Hmm.
Um, and then we did the testing where I'm sure you've
Genetic testing.
discussed
Yeah.
this on this, but yeah, they pluck off a few cells from the
Yes.
outer blastocyst, and so we knew that I had two that were, you know, male and two female, and my husband had one male and one female. So
Okay.
we sort of knew that we had, okay, I had four, he had two, we had, half, male, half female. So that was kind of our starting point there. So,
What was your reaction when you found out that news?
yeah, I think, we didn't feel, I mean, I think, of course, we'd sort of dreamed like, I think our dream was like two kids and probably one boy, one girl was kind of our vision. So it
Mm.
felt like, okay, like that's, I definitely was thought 36 eggs. I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have like, whatever, 12 and 12 or something like I thought.
Yeah.
But it's still, the numbers felt at
Hopeful.
least like hopeful that, and then it was funny, because then we had the option to sort of think, okay, do you want a boy first, a girl first, and whose embryo are you going to choose first? And so we had
Mm.
like more, I think, things to talk about there with choice. And
Hmm.
so we kind of thought, I mean, my husband he kind of was like, well, if I had to choose, I kind of feel like he kind of wanted a boy with like my genetics.
Okay.
Um, and I was like, cool, well, girl with yours is good with me. And then we kind of thought that maybe an older sister might be a good, in the sense that maybe uh, girls might have a little bit more of a nurturing kind of maternal.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's not always that way, so I'm totally aware of that. But we're like, well, maybe an older sister might be just potentially like a
Hmm.
nurturing, nice older sibling. So we went with
Mm.
a girl first, and since he had kind of wanted a boy from me, we chose his girl embryo.
I love that. And she's 9
A
and he's
9, yeah.
6, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this was in 2015. We were kind of going through,
Hmm.
and she was born October of 2016. So we did the
Okay.
embryo transfer in February of 2016.
That's
But
wonderful.
then we
Yeah.
had to meet a separate woman as a surrogate, which is a whole nother
I want to hear
conversation.
all about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
2015, you're taking me back. Yeah, that's when we started the process,
Okay. Yeah.
testing.
And I think,
And
but for
hmm
you, you'd already had probably a few years of
yeah,
leading up to that.
a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whereas we were able to just like walk into the clinic and like, kind of say, hey, we're here.
So the time
So
frame. Yeah, let's talk briefly about that. When you decided on your egg donor, how soon after were you able to go through that process?
yeah, I mean that's the
Pretty
thing is
immediate?
if you walk in there as like two men who don't
Yeah.
have, if you just need an egg donor,
Yeah.
I mean, literally we could have probably chosen that day, to be honest. Like
Wow.
register, sign up. We took a few months to kind of like look through. Um, but I mean, it really
Pretty
things are
quick.
set up that you can do it very quickly. So I would say within, yeah, a few months, we kind of thought, okay, this is probably the egg donor. And
Hmm.
then you have to coordinate, her cycle and medication and,
Hmm.
lawyers and contracts and all that.
Good to know that. And back to how you were able to get the embryos, just buying them, you said you bought all of her eggs. Is that kind of how?
Yeah, I guess I don't even think you have to um I don't remember specifically, but yeah, you
Okay.
just like
That's
you
okay.
get
Okay.
all of they
Okay.
I don't even remember them like parsing it out that way, but it was like
Okay. So
yours
you
I think you just kind of agree like we're going to essentially fertilize all of them
got it. Okay.
and then see how many embryos you get. So it wasn't like and also we didn't freeze her eggs and then do it.
Oh,
We were ready
fresh.
like
Yeah.
exactly. So
Got it.
so it was sort of the process of just I don't remember specifically like yeah, it was like you're gonna create embryos and it was just sort of like
Mm-hmm.
paid for
Mm-hmm.
that whole process.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And and then um and then the next step is sort of like, okay, now you have to find someone to carry.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Part
I
two.
know. Well,
Oh
so
my
what
gosh.
was, I guess just to back up a little bit is
Yes.
like I have two sisters and my husband
Mhm.
has two sisters. So I think there was kind of this conversation even before, which is like, do you, because if we got an egg from one of his sisters with, my sperm, then that would be like more of like a genetic,
Mm,
it would be a little bit more like if we could have kids, the two of us. And so there was this brief thought about that,
mm,
like maybe one of his sisters would donate her egg, and then maybe one of my sisters would donate her egg, and but I think we both were just like we really want this to be like our kind of
mm,
family and our process. And it would be super like amazing. And I have a feeling our sisters would have at least egg donation. I don't think that we were not ready to ask for a sister to carry a baby, um, but then I think the more we thought about it, was like it just
mm,
it just can get complicated and a little bit like fuzzy and messy potentially. If you're like, that's your aunt, it's also your biological mother.
yeah.
And, we just kind of were like, let's not go there.
I
Um,
respect that a lot. And were you open with them about your process, or did you kind of keep things more to yourself with him, your partner?
we were open. Like I'm kind of an open book. My
Yeah.
husband is a little more private, which is
Mhm.
probably good for me to have someone that's like Toby, like, reel it in a little bit. So no,
Oh.
I was pretty open as we were going through it. And we never even asked our sisters if that I feel like we absolutely could have, but we had had that discussion ourselves and we were kind of like, let's just not even
Okay.
make it like blurry and confusing. So,
Thank you for
but
sharing that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
just to kind of even before we went um the anonymous egg donor route, there was this thought of like, oh, we do have sisters and we could make this like
Mhm.
interesting genetic mix
Yeah.
and then it was like, no, we want to just like
Mhm.
be independent and do this. So
Oh, thank you. I respect that a lot. Yeah.
yeah, and so these fertility centers, a lot of them don't also, or at least back then, it might be a little bit different now, but a lot of them don't also handle the surrogacy piece of it.
Hmm.
So they had a list of different surrogacy kind of centers or in the area, and so we then um, kind of reached out to a surrogacy agency. And this is where we did have friends like through tennis who were a few years ahead of us in the process, and they had said, "Oh, we found our surrogate through this agency," and it was one of the ones that was on the list. So we said, "Oh, it's on the list that our fertility center recommends, and our friends use them." So we called, and this woman was like, "Actually, I do have some women who." Have carried before and there's like a few that are interested and kind of ready to do it again.
Wow.
So so we um and this is sort of interesting is a lot of people are really curious about like what kinds of things do you look for in a surrogate and what kind of questions do you ask and
Mhm.
what kinds of things do you put in the contract and you know what if she's like just doing this for money and it's like which I think is totally fair to
Yeah.
wonder about, Um, but we ended up connecting with this woman who, um, so we live in like San Jose area. She's in
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento, which is, 2.5, 3 hours away, but
Mm-hmm.
still like local in the same state.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed to kind of meet for dinner halfway. And so we went, and she brought her mom with her, which was sort of nice just to kind of know like, okay, there's family support. And
Yeah.
she'd had two kids of her own, and then she'd actually carried for a couple from Italy. So surrogacy is illegal in a lot of European countries. So it was a straight couple who had found her. And so she'd had two kids of her own and had already been through surrogacy, which is huge because, it's a hugely emotional thing to like carry a baby and then, um, you know,
I can
not
imagine.
keep it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so we had dinner with her, and it was just one of those things where you're like, I guess we should interview more people, but we were both like, this feels absolutely perfect.
Wow.
And so our people sort of said, oh, but you gotta like interview more. And we was like, no, like we trust ourselves. We trust like the way we felt. And there was
Mm-hmm.
like warmth and love. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had this like great dinner with her and her mom. And we were like, we don't need to meet anyone else.
Oh my God, I
It
love
was
it.
awesome. And so then you're like, okay, but you can't really monitor her. She lives hours away. Do you know what she's eating? And
Mm-hmm.
it's true, like we don't have, but in the end, it was like she has a ton of support. Like we just like trusted her. And you can ask them. I mean, it's like, of course, like don't drink alcohol and don't, do
Mm-hmm.
drugs during and don't
Yeah.
smoke during pregnancy. But like, were we going to ask her to like not eat processed food? Like, I think some people do put that in their contract, and we were
Right.
like, it just didn't feel like that important to us
Mm-hmm.
to kind of stipulate like all these things that, um, so we just kind of we trusted her a lot, and it was like couldn't have been more amazing. So, and actually ended up carrying our son as well. She carried
I
both of our
love
kids. So,
that.
yeah.
How does that conversation go down? You're having dinner and you told her right then and there, you're like, we really like you. Would you carry our children?
I mean, it kind of was one of those things where it was like, it feels like we should be, you know, we should be like not so putting our cards out, but it was like, that's not who
Yeah.
I am for
Yeah,
sure.
you are. You're so open and
And so it was like, this feels really good. And
love
so we
that.
kind of left the dinner, I think, just being like, saying like, we don't really feel like we need to meet anyone else. And I think she
She
felt,
felt the same
yeah.
way.
So it was like one of those, good vibes.
Oh, I can imagine she's like family. I mean, do
Yeah.
you still
Especially
keep in
since, yeah,
touch?
so we do. She moved to, her husband at the time was, like military and got
Mhm.
transferred. They went to Utah for a little while. And so after our daughter was born, like our surrogate came from Utah to our daughter's first birthday party, like drove 18 hours and
Oh,
like came to her birthday party. And, we FaceTime quite a bit. Yeah, we have like a
wow.
really nice relationship with her. So it's cute.
So you both sign a contract, right?
Yes.
And it's all these legal forms, I can imagine.
Yeah. And so, well, um, and I mean, you look, there's things in there about, like clothing, like maternity clothes, and so there's a lot in there. And it's also like, if you have to think about all these things, like if
Yeah.
God forbid, something happens, like she has to be ready to have a hysterectomy and like lose her uterus. And I mean, there's just like, it's a big deal. Like carrying
Mm.
child delivery it's intense.
Oh.
And so, thankfully she'd done it before. Um, and so, yeah, we signed all the contracts
Hmm.
and then, but it's funny because like during pregnancy, she would send us a picture like every week, so we kind of tracked
Oh.
like the weeks, and she would have these like super cute outfits on, and I'm like, oh, I think we like bought you that dress with, and so
Did you send her a stipend or were you actually like
yeah,
buying her
it was
any?
like part of the contract, so there was
Okay.
like a certain amount of, and that was
Okay.
sort
Oh
of
yeah.
just handled with like an escrow account or whatever. But it was
Okay,
like, oh, that's
gotcha.
a really cute maternity dress. I think it must have come from the
Oh,
account. So, and then I
oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
keep that in case, in case you can do another one for us. So,
Yeah. Oh wow.
um,
How were
and
her
then
pregnancies? Were they pretty
it
smooth?
was, yeah, this is where like also we were lucky because,
Yeah.
and I think this is kind of maybe just a different experience, or if other people end up going the surrogacy route, there are, I think a lot of women who do it are women who have just had successful pregnancies and deliveries, and for
Hmm.
whatever reason, their bodies seem to be kind of built for it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so she had really, and she'd had, three pregnancies before that were all pretty
Hmm.
standard and uncomplicated. So, yeah, it was as easy as a pregnancy can be, I guess.
It probably gave you a lot of peace of mind just having gone through this process, knowing what was all involved with having been a
Yeah,
surrogate before and
exactly. So that
guide you through the
was
steps.
very, and then, and she'd had all of her deliveries. She delivered at 39 weeks,
Mm.
sort of, spontaneous vaginal deliveries at 39 weeks for her three previous. And then our daughter, sure enough, 39 weeks,
Okay.
she, starts having contractions. And then she said herself, like, I haven't ever used epidural. Like, I don't know. I've heard maybe it, can affect the baby. And we're like, you can use an epidural, girl. Like, we're not worried about
Wow.
that. And she was like, no, I just prefer not to.
Oh,
So
wow.
and we were in the delivery room, like with
Oh,
her, and she's just, breathing through the contractions, and her husband was
wow.
there, like on the massaging her, and we're sort of, it was like this super cool, like magical experience, but you would have these moments of like stepping out of yourself and being like, this is unbelievable that like this woman who was a stranger, you know, 12
Yeah.
months ago
Yeah.
is like carrying a baby for us, and her husband's here like massaging her back, and she's like choosing not to do an epidural to just like
Mm.
the whole thing was unbelievable. And then she delivered, and we did like skin to skin like right away, and it was like the four of us in the room, and it
Oh.
was wild. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Toby.
Yeah.
I
It's
can only
crazy.
imagine how you must have felt in that moment.
Yeah, it was just right, like all the steps leading up to it.
Hmm.
And I still, I mean, I see babies all day, every day, and I
Hmm.
still, when this like human being, like I saw a 3-day old baby yesterday, and it's like, how does this like human body get just like formed and then
Yeah.
delivered? It still amazes me.
It
So
will forever. I'm just in awe when I have a picture of our embryo, our one healthy embryo was our daughter. That's it. We had one embryo out of seven. And that one, just seeing that picture and what
yeah,
she's become, and she's 8, and I look at her and I'm just full of just awe and wonder every day. I'm like,
yeah,
how? How is this? It's just a
I know
miracle.
it
I
is totally. Um, and I think one other piece that
Mhm.
which I think has been touched on by some other guests, like with embryo donation and stuff, but I think sometimes people think about how will I, feel if the
Mhm.
child is not genetically related to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was because part of like wanting to do IVF versus adoption was wanting, I think some genetic kind of physical
Hmm.
connection like that. And I, going into it, you're like, will it feel different? Will I notice anything different? And I think one of the coolest things has been just realizing that it absolutely doesn't feel different at all. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think if there is any people wondering like, okay, egg donation, it's not my egg, I'm not going to be, biologically related or whatever. I think that that's a normal thought to have. But I think for me, and even I think just some other guests you've had and people I've talked to, like
Hmm.
that just really hasn't at all come up. Like you do notice like, oh, like interesting, like, that like the egg donor, might has like wavy hair. Like our daughter has wavy hair. But it's not like it doesn't change the love you feel. Like I don't think that I
Yeah.
have any different, you know,
Thank you
degree
for
of love.
sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know because I can imagine how many, and I've had conversations with many people about this, right? And but they're
Yeah.
yours through and through.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and so I just think like if people are out there kind of hesitant about like, not having your own genetic material, like I think
Hmm.
it's something we all think about, but it for I think most people I've talked to seems to not really matter in the end. So
Thank you, Toby, for going there and
yeah.
sharing that. Emotionally, were you pretty like steady, calm throughout this whole process? I mean, it's, she's a couple hours away, right? Going through the,
Right. Um, yeah, and I think that's sort of also interesting is like since I'm a pediatrician and I like see babies all day and I counsel like I'm in the world of like babies and
yeah.
like so many things that I think are a mystery and scary. Um, like thankfully for me, like I didn't have a lot of those kind of
Hmm.
fears.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that's just like, by chance I happen to be a pediatrician, so I
Yeah.
had less fears that way. I also am like I have like high risk tolerance. I think all of us we have our own sense of like how much risk we tolerate
Hmm.
and so like I have high risk tolerance. I
Hmm.
also just I think have seen in, residency and I've
Hmm.
seen a lot of pregnancies and babies that didn't have kind of a lot of good prenatal care and nurturing and even a lot of like, babies exposed to substances. And I've just seen so many babies do like unbelievably well. So
Hmm.
I think part of it's like my level of risk tolerance, just being in the profession and kind of like seeing a lot of things. I was like, I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's gonna work out. Like
Give
I
you
don't.
peace of mind. You just trusted.
Yeah,
Just like how
yeah,
you found your surrogate. Like you just knew. And I talk a lot
exactly.
about that knowing, listening to that gut kind of intuition of this feels right. And you just
Yeah,
trust. You had a lot of trust, it sounds like, through this whole
yeah.
process.
Well, and I think just something about like IVF, and I think IVF in general, but also like I think, gay couples who are choosing to like partner and have kids, there's such intentionality behind it that
Hmm.
and often like years, like, you're usually going to be a little bit older, have some life experience, and you're really intentionally choosing this. And
Yeah.
so I think it just it kind of selects for people who are have intentionality and like a real clear goal. So I think and I even see it in my practice like uh you know it's just it's different parents who are in their 40s and have been
Hmm.
wanting and working for this for a long time.
Hmm.
And so I think that's also just like an interesting piece to note is that um, for any couple going through IVF, but also like even specifically, I think for like gay men who are like, the culture is not like you kind of have to really break away from kind of standard gay culture, but like we are choosing to go
Hmm.
this route, which is, probably going to mean living in a place where we really think about the schools and
Hmm.
so there's just like a lot of choices that you make with intention along the way. So I think that
Hmm.
just makes for like a different experience with pregnancy, but also just like parenting too, you
That's
know.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you pretty open with your kids and having these conversations? I don't know. Like, are they aware of your
Yeah, I
story?
think
And
that's also like,
hmm.
I mean, as our daughter's 9, like at some point it's like, okay, clearly like these two men did not, so it's not like, whereas I think for a lot of your listeners, it's how much do you disclose?
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
You
When do
could,
you disclose? How much do you disclose?
exactly.
How
And
open do you want to be? Right. I was
so I
curious
think
from
for
your point of
us,
view.
it's like there's just like obviously no doubt that, there was help along the way. And so that helps from day one to be just like really upfront about it. And in thinking about here today, I was like, oh my gosh, like I there's something I really want to work on and need to work on, which is I think um because we have the surrogate who is like a physical person that our kids know. We
Mm-hmm.
have pictures of her, carrying them.
Hmm.
They see her, they know that she delivered them. The egg donor piece is more confusing.
I gotcha.
And I think one thing that I'm a little bit like embarrassed about is that we haven't been great about kind of talking about that piece of it as much. And I think as they get older and learn about like, wait, sperm, egg, our surrogate, it's not her egg. Who's this other person?
Mm.
Um, and we have a lot of information about her, but I think we need to just, so this was a good reminder for me to be
Yeah.
like, no, we need to start talking about, oh, you have another woman helped us. She donated her egg and we don't know her, but just to kind of like really get that in their
Mm.
language so that it's not like when they really understand
Mhm.
sperm, egg, embryo, they're like, wait, where did the egg come from? And it's like, oh yeah, you're 17, by the way. So I
I have
think
a book for you. I have a few books
ex
I know that I could
okay.
send, you could share you to have those conversations with your kids.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll chat
think
further.
yeah, I would actually like that was one piece I'm like, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I had I thought about that and I was like, you'd be upfront, you're upfront from the beginning, which we were,
Yeah.
but it got a little bit just tricky
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
one of them is like in our lives, and that's where like the anonymous egg donor piece was like,
Hmm.
well, like they don't understand egg and sperm and all this yet. And there's like this woman who physically did carry them, and over the years we've kind of stopped talking about the egg donor because
Mm.
when you're 3 and 4, it kind of I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. And now I'm like,
Mm.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I need to start. So anyway, I
That's
that's
exciting.
one
It's
piece that
a new
I'm
opportunity to
okay. So I'll look
go
yeah, if
deeper
you
with your
can
kids. That's
send
exciting.
me
Yeah, I'll
some.
share some resources
Okay.
with you. Oh, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like yeah, it's just a
Oh,
piece where I'm like, that I could have done better on. So,
oh my
but I
gosh.
still have time.
How has this process shifted anything in being a doctor in the practice, working with families and pediatrics? I'm curious, do you come across other babies that have been born through IVF? Do you share? I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm curious like how it's shaped you and your
Yeah, no,
husband.
that's been one of the most fun things is you know, you when you're training to be a pediatrician and you're in residency and you're
Mhm.
24, you are giving advice to parents and you sort of think you know what you're talking about. And you might know like whatever, the medical thing
Yeah.
to say, but it is just it's been so different to have kids and have gone through all of this. And I just feel like I come to my job with a lot more like street cred, to be honest. And it's like,
Hmm.
and you could just be like, oh my God, like my son woke up, last night, he had a night terror. Like I totally freaking get it. Like so just being able to just relate to people on that level, it's helped my practice as a pediatrician immensely, just like having kids. So, and then yeah, because I live in Silicon Valley, I mean, like
Hmm.
a lot of our community is, they're software engineers for Google and Meta and Apple. I mean, I live, 2 miles from Apple's headquarters in
Yeah.
Cupertino. And so a lot of my patients, the parents are software engineers, both parents are engineers for these high tech firms and
Yeah.
they're, coming into this. And so, I mean, yeah, I can just relate and share kind of my personal story. And more and more I'm having like gay couples too. So I probably have like 4 or 5 other couples that are like two dads. And so
Hmm.
that's you know, it helps to just be open and share. But yeah, it's been fun to like um yeah, to see how my practice has evolved, like as a parent. I mean, regardless of like IVF, just like it's been fun to be like, okay, like I totally get what these people are going through. And when I give them advice, it's not like, well, you should do this. It's like, oh my God, like my kid totally has a meltdown about screen time. Like I get it.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to feel like I'm doing a better job as a pediatrician that
Oh,
way.
I can only
Yeah.
imagine the kind of dad you are. I mean, gosh.
Well, thank you. Oh, the other
And
thing I just was going to
yeah.
say about a lot of that is I think that what can come with kind of intentionality and and you know really going through this like years long process sometimes and really choosing it, what I see is a lot of anxiety, and I see a lot of parental anxiety. Um, so in my job, but I think instead of kind of like being judgmental about it and kind of seem like, just don't worry about it, whatever. It's like understanding that no, 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 like these parents have been like it took 12 years to get here. So yes, they're going to worry about, the little red spot on the kid's right toe and to
Yeah.
not dismiss them about the red spot on the kid's right toe, but to be like,
Mhm.
okay, like the journey has been long. Like, let's talk about the red spot on the right toe and not. So I think there's so many awesome things that come with choosing to be a parent and like really
Mhm.
diving in that way. I think the flip side is a lot of worry and anxiety, and especially like I said, working in Silicon Valley where people are like engineers and they kind of are used to like, if I do this, then I get this, output. If I
Mhm.
do this in my job, I do this input, this output happens. And I
Mhm.
have to talk a lot with my patients about like human beings are not, your software code and like you can do the things that you think you're supposed to do, but it's not necessarily going to have the outcome you think. And
Oh, wow.
there's a lot of like kind of black and white thinking
Mhm.
in just sort of a lot of professionals, a lot of like, people in their 40s who've had a career and they're sort of used to having the ability to, have the outcome they want. And I think
Mhm.
just with like, and even with IVF too, it's like, well, we choose this egg donor, we choose this embryo. This has this features, and I'm going to choose this one. And if I implant this embryo, then da, 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 da. And it's like when you have a kid, I'm sure it's like all of that goes out the window. But I
Mhm.
think a lot of us are people who are used to feeling like we have more control. So I think
Yeah.
there's like kind of, some of that sort of life experience plus just like anxiety and worry about this thing that you've been working hard. So
Mhm.
that I think I've noticed a lot in my practice is like just being aware of parental kind of worry
Yeah.
and being sensitive to like the
Yeah.
all the stuff that got us here. So
You're so
I'm
compassionate. It's
more
evident.
aware. Well, I think, and I was just listening to one of your episodes this morning about, I think just people have, you know, like their own experience with just doctors and medicine. And it's like, I think we just, as a medical community, have to acknowledge that like we don't have all the answers. And um and so
Mhm.
we need to just and I think also just being like kind and
Yeah.
like compassionate, like that's
Mhm.
what people really want.
So true.
Like yeah,
Empathy.
exactly. So it was a
Mhm.
good reminder, even just like
Oh.
listening before it came on, like, okay, because we all
Oh.
get tired and we're busy. So
This conversation is so good, Toby. Gosh, I want to talk to you more, but we could go
no,
on
no, no.
forever.
Well, we can call and
I'm
yeah.
so grateful. You really just poured your heart out and like I'm so honored at your first podcast. Like amazing.
Yes.
Any other final thoughts of anything you'd like to share? I'll include like how people can connect with you, your website, and if you need a doctor out in San Jose, I
I
got one for you,
know.
a
Yeah,
pediatrician.
yeah.
So
I know. I think, yeah, that was most, I sort of made some
yeah,
notes of things that, but I think
yeah,
also, and I guess, just to think about, like men or, the
yeah.
partners going through the process too. And
Mhm.
I didn't have a chance to look at all your episodes, but if you've
This
gotten
is the
to,
first. I've never
okay.
shared. Yeah.
So
So,
just, that I think, I think to just be conscious of like what the partner's going through too,
Hmm.
and that uh like I think men are showing up more as like engaged dads these days. And so I
Hmm.
think there is more like involvement, hopefully emotionally. And I think also like we've been talking about just like wanting to actually do a little bit more with like child rearing and being more
Hmm.
engaged. So that's been kind of it's been nice
Hmm.
to see. And I think to, not forget about like, for a lot of families there is like a male partner maybe
Right.
who has their own stresses and you know, maybe
Hmm.
feeling like maybe it is a sperm problem or whatever. So
Hmm.
so attending to the men in the process too.
Yeah, no,
So
that's so important. And it sounds like you both are just so involved and, you know,
yeah, we try to be. I mean, just like even at our school, like we're the only gay couple. Our kids go to a, public school,
hmm.
TK through fifth grade, and we're the only gay couple, so we both really want to be present and we try to volunteer and be around. So
Yeah.
the other students are like, oh yeah, that's your one dad, that's your dad, that's your papa, and just to have it not be like if we're there, it's like anything, like when you're just like see a real person, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
in theory, maybe that felt weird, but like, I know those two kids, they have two dads, like they're always around, they seem like, basically
Hmm.
normal people. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I think we both are really making the effort to be
Hmm.
involved so that we're just like in the community and, people
Yeah,
are
I
like,
love
oh
that.
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to meet Ellis Bond sometime.
Yes,
Is that
yeah,
his
yeah.
name, Ellis Bond?
Yeah, yeah, very good. Yeah, very good.
And when you're back in Colorado, I think your parents are still here, right?
They are, I know. We
Mhm.
will I really love that we reconnected and
Yeah.
I will reach out when we come back.
Yes. I love to
Yeah.
see you again. Oh my gosh, Toby, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope it felt like
This was incredible.
okay. I
I'm
just
gonna
rambled a lot, but yeah, hopefully
so
there was
good.
some value in there.
So good. Thank you, Toby.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe I'll call